Okay, with the sheer volume of WrestleMania preview videos coming out in recent days, left and right, I really want to share my thoughts on the show. I am really excited about this year's show. It is the most stacked WrestleMania in recent years, in my opinion. I'm really looking forward to this. I'm really looking forward to previewing it. I want to compare it. This is what I'm going to do in the video, to be honest. I want to compare it to what are considered to be the best WrestleManias, so I can just, see how it holds its own, because I really do think that it holds its own against these WrestleManias. It is an extremely stacked show, and there is no excuse for it not to deliver, I think. Anything less than a great WrestleMania is a disappointment with the card that you have this year, and I really hope that they make the most of it. I will go over all that in my next video. But for this video, this is what I promised I would do first, so I will. I like doing this. I like to consider the alternate history of the professional wrestling world, and in this case, we have something that did not turn out the way that the WWE wanted it to, and what would the end result have been if it had done, and that is the character of Muhammad Hassan. We all remember who Muhammad Hassan was. He was around in 2004, 2005, and he was getting quite a bit of heel heat because he was doing the anti-American terrorist act. And we all know the story of how he ended up being forced from television by SmackDown's television network after a case of bad timing ended his WWE career. And, we're going to talk about how, if that had not happened, what would the end result have been, and what would have been the overall legacy of the character. Would it still be even around today, to be honest? And I'm going to answer that question immediately by saying no, it wouldn't be around today, because it's not a long-term character. It is a very short-term, very redundant character when you do this sort of thing. You do the anti-American, in this case anti-American and terrorist gimmick interlinked, but it's still a very short-term thing that gets very redundant very quickly, and you cannot make a long-term character out of that. It's never worked in the past. We know that the story was that this guy was supposed to go over the Undertaker at the Great American Bash 2005, and he would have gone on to face Batista at SummerSlam for the World Heavyweight Championship. We don't know if he was going to win that match, but we do know that he was going to get a title match at SummerSlam, which is a pretty big deal. So this guy, they were having some plans later on this guy. They wanted him to be a main eventer, but would it have been a long-term character? Would he have been one of the more established stars today if he were still around? And I can easily say that he would not have been, because his character does not allow him to do that. Take Sergeant Slaughter in 1991, when he first started doing the Iraqi sympathizer thing during the Gulf War. That was insanely over. That was over to the point where there were security issues with the WWF events at that time, because there were concerns of Sarge's safety because he was so hated. It was absolutely insane, the amount of heel heat that he got. But what happened? What did they do with him? Did they try and run with that for too long? No, they didn't. They jobbed him out to Hogan at WrestleMania 7, and he never touched the title again. I don't know if he got main event rubs after that. I'd have to look it up specifically. I probably should have done that before I started doing this video. But we know safely say that he never got the title again. He was not a long-term main eventer. It worked in the short term. It worked in a big way in the short term, but it did not provide the basis for Sergeant Slaughter to be a long-term character with multiple title reigns and with historic place in wrestling history for a long period of time. The same thing with Muhammad Hassan. He was hot at the time. He was hot, and then he got taken away at the peak of his overness, I suppose you would say. But had he been allowed to stay, he would have been redundant by within a year, maybe a year and a half. And the only reason you give him the title at all is to put over a face who needs to be put over, in my opinion. You put the title on this guy, it's not for him, it's for somebody else. It's for somebody else to eventually topple him and get insanely over as a face as a result of beating this so hated heel. That's what my opinion is anyway. Muhammad Hassan would never have won the World Heavyweight Championship for himself. He would never have won it to advance his own career. He would have done it to advance the career of somebody else. And, I do not personally believe that he would have won the title at SummerSlam in 2005. I think that they were pretty much set with where they were going with the World Heavyweight Championship. Well, no, of course not, because of Eddie dying, but they were pretty. I don't think Hassan had a part to play in those plans, in my opinion. Anyway, this is all, of course, alternate history, all up to speculation. But in my opinion, they would have had him do the match. They would have had him lose, and then he would have gone on to put over a face in a long-term feud leading into WrestleMania. That's what I would have done anyway, because someone who's face and is good but having a kind of a hard time having that special something to be really good and get really over could have used Muhammad Hassan as a catalyst to get over, in my opinion. They could have used him to catapult themselves to future stardom, in my opinion. Because Hassan, you know, while he probably added some unique personality to the gimmick, he wasn't just a generic anti-American character. You know, there have been many of those, but he was kind of different because he had the terrorist thing kind of linked into it. But still, it wasn't just him. It was barely him. It was just kind of 25% him and 75% the gimmick that he was given that got him the boos. You give that gimmick to anyone, that they're going to get booed. They're going to get hated. It's kind of really easy to do that gimmick. It's kind of like cheap heat. You know, it's easy heat. There's no real talent to it, in my opinion. But still, there was a period, 2005, 2006, where his status of being so over as a heel would have been hot and ready to be taken advantage of if he had stayed. There was that period. You need to take advantage of him, and that's what I would have done. I would have fed him a face to put over, and, you know, make sure that face makes the most of this character that was so hated. You know, who was in the mid-card in 2005 that could have used him? You know, Carlito was there. Carlito was definitely hot at this time. But then again, you know, Carlito is definitely a better heel than a face. So maybe, you know, he wouldn't have used Hassan the most effectively. You know, Christian was there. If Christian had stayed, maybe he could have used Hassan, because he was already on the borderline of main event status at this time. You know, he could have used Hassan to get himself over good and proper and establish a main event run. But of course he went to TNA, and that was the start of a mass influx of guys into that company. So Christian could have been it, but he was gone. Shelton Benjamin, again, you could have used him. I don't think he would have had the charisma to be the best choice, but he definitely could have been a choice. My choice, my pick, would have been Matt Hardy. You put him in a feud with Hassan, it leads into WrestleMania 22. Hardy wins. He just kind of ends Hassan's relevance to a degree, and he is credited with that, and he gets insanely over. There were two periods in history where Matt Hardy was, in my opinion, the most over. 2003, 2003, when he had the Matt Hardy version 1 heel gimmick, he was really over, in my opinion. And when he first came back in 2005 to feud with Edge, he was at his most over, in my opinion. So as soon as the feud with Edge was done, they could have just capitalized on that momentum and put him in a feud with Hassan. You know, I know that they were on different shows at this time, but that's not a problem for the WWE, at least not these days. You put him in a feud with Hassan, it leads into WrestleMania. You know, it's not hard to do a feud like that. That feud writes itself. You know, Hassan does all the things that have him be hated, and Matt Hardy is the force against that. That's a very easy feud to book, and the end result is so satisfying. The face goes over at WrestleMania. You know, Matt Hardy is the sort of face that he is insanely over. Even today, he's one of the most over mid-carders. It's a shame that they don't see that. It's a shame that they have tagged him up with Khali, of all people. But, you know, at this point, he was even more over than he is now, and he's still very over, in my opinion. But you could have capitalized on that. He's the sort of guy that could have used Hassan to a great effect, got himself over, and got some sort of a main event push out of it. Because, you know, it's not just because I'm a Matt Hardy fan. I am a Matt Hardy fan. I will freely admit that, as opposed to being a Jeff Hardy fan, which I am not. But you know, someone like Matt Hardy could have used Muhammad Hassan. You know, Matt Hardy over, but not main event. Definitely could have used Muhammad Hassan to get himself over and make the most of this character that would have been redundant by the middle of 2006, in my opinion. People would have started saying, who cares? He would not have been around in 2010. I can definitely say that in my opinion, and I do not think he would have ever won the title, but that's just my opinion. Give me your opinion. I'm out. Later.